sort of risk profiles are so that we can plan, not build back better. We don't want to build back. We want to build in a place that doesn't fall down. So those are important. The other risks that we've got from a city point of view is the cyclonic events which come through generally from sort of Mozambique side, which cause large wave events that are very erosive. In other words, it takes the sand away, and we've had a number of cases over the years where we've lost infrastructure and buildings. So that we need to be mindful of. We've also got a challenge with sediment loss. Our beaches are made up of the sand that travels down our rivers. And I want to talk specifically about the factors which are negatively impacting the sediment flow. So just from previous research work, in Durban, we're looking at about 2.7 millimeters per year of sea level rise. That does not sound very much, but you need to remember that the 2.7 millimeters is a vertical rise, and you're on a sloping beach. So it magnifies a couple of times, maybe 10 to 20 times that per year. What we did is we tried to look at the global projections, and we modeled 4 different scenarios. The current scenario of 0, which obviously not really good for planning, but we modeled 3 other scenarios, 300 mils, 600 mils, and 1 meter or 1,000 millimeters. And there's sort of a probability chance there because the rate of sea level rise depends on how mankind reacts to emissions and all sorts of other variables. So if we start looking at what we've done then in terms of a pictorial sense, this is a Manzimtoti. The red line there that you see on the beach is the current sea level rise position, 0 increase. And then the lines going back, the green one is 300, the purple one is 600 mils, the yellow one is 1 meter. So you'll see there we've got potential problems down the track. This is the central beachfront. I'm sure you'll recognize in the bottom there Ushaka and all the flats, and pretty much our golden mile. It's where our tourists are drawn to. So it's something that you need to factor into planning in that zone. Shearman was showing us pictures of sand replacement, building beaches. We have been doing that for nearly 100 years on this piece of beach. Many of you probably don't know that, but we have a system of transporting the sand from the bluff side via a dredger into a sand hopper, and we distribute that sand on our beaches to ensure that we have sand on our beaches. As you go north of the Mgani River, the system equalizes again, and we don't need to replace sand there. So we've been doing those sorts of things for a long time. This is the bluff. You'll see that there's like a red overlay there. So what happens is as sea levels rise and start eating the bottom of the bluff, we're going to get slip failure. In other words, sections of that ground are going to fall down to the sea. In here we've got the treatment works which deals with most of the sewage which comes from the Berea and the CBD. So long term we need to think about alternative sewage treatment, because if sea levels rise to these sorts of numbers, we won't have any land left there. This is Umhlanga. It's actually an early photograph. You see the pier, the famous Umhlanga whalebone pier is being built, and the pearls development in the background. Again, scenarios that we need to plan for. I think this is the only one that's a sort of natural beach, but I think I just wanted to illustrate the fact that we have created an access onto the beach, and that is where the vulnerability will be in the future. You'll see the lines kink inside there. If you had the dune cordon, which you can see all the vegetated dune, if that was a continuous piece, we would be in a far less riskier position. So that's just on the, and there is concern about the loss of environmental assets. It's not just the built environment that we are worried Okay, let me talk about cyclones. Cyclones generate large waves. Those of you who remember the 2007 storm in Durban, there were 3 cyclones, Favio, Gumedi, and Dora. And they came within about 3 weeks. And that absolutely devastated the coastline. I think we had billions of rands damage. But these are the things that we're worried about. So some of those tracks which come in very close to the Durban coastline, you know, the cyclone can be 200, 300, 400, 500 kilometers away. The wind fields that generate the waves will reach us. So we need to be sure that when we build infrastructure, they can withstand those sorts of forces. Sand mining. I know we need sand to build, but the moment, my opinion is we are harvesting sand really unsustainably. We're taking sand out of the rivers, and I think I made the comment earlier that the sand flow down the rivers is our beach building material. So we're starving our beaches by removing sand. If you have a look at the columns, so look at maybe the last one on the right-hand side, the grand total. The blue line there is the sand that we would get will be generated with no dams. That red line is what's being taken out of the system. So we're taking out almost all of the sand that actually comes through to build our beaches. So long term, there's going to be beach regression. In other words, the beaches are going to get narrower, and we'll have less protection when we get big storm events. The dams I've mentioned, again, the dams have got a similar story. Obviously, dams are built to give us drinking water, but they're also extremely efficient at trapping the sediment flow in the dams and shortening the lives of the dams, which a lot of people haven't really realized. You know, dams sediment at about 2% a year, so most of our dams have only got about a 50-year life. What are we going to do when our dams fill up with sediment? But it's also starving the beach, which is the point I wanted to make. So let me move on. So what? We've dealt with sort of the infrastructural stuff, and let's now look in the bigger context. You know, what are the governance and regulatory environments that we have to operate in? And many of you will know that the demarcation board set about dividing up the country into wall-to-wall municipalities. And in all the coastal municipalities, the boundary of our municipality is the low water mark. Now, the low water mark in sort of layman's terms is if you go down to the beach and the tide is down, that's pretty much the low water mark. We don't own, or we have no authority beyond the low water mark. So the ocean that you see out there, that is actually under the control and management of national government. The Constitution sets out the 3 spheres of government, and within that there are the Schedules 4 and 5, which set out our responsibilities as local government, but it also sets out the provincial and national responsibilities. And I think from the discussions this morning, what was becoming clear to me is that there's no meeting of the minds between the 3 spheres to actually regulate our joint interests across those boundaries. Now, we can't go and build something in the sea without getting permissions. So it's quite an elaborate system. There is a fantastic resource, and I'd like to thank our colleagues from EdTIA for setting that up. Omar, Alfred, I know you're in the audience. Coast KZN is a fantastic resource. It gives a lot of information on the activities and the coastal management aspects, and I was hoping to draw on this resource live today. I'm not sure if the technology is going to be up to it, but just to give you a snapshot of these are the sorts of pieces of legislation that local government, in fact any developer, has to negotiate And it can be very daunting. Some of those are totally within our control. So if I look at the Splumer, which is the 5th one down, that's a purely local government responsibility. And then the second last one is around the coastal management bylaws. Our bylaws are effectively our acts at a local government level, and we get those approved and we enforce those. Outside of those two, most of those are national government responsibilities. I'm hoping you're going to get this presentation because all of those lines there have links to the relative legislation. I'm hoping that the team can actually click on this link. I don't know if that's going to be able to work. So this is contained within the Coast KZN website. It's a fantastic resource. It shows you what is defined in the coastal zone. So if you could scroll down a little bit, there'll be a, no, sorry, go up a bit. So click on the interactive map at the top, go up a bit, up. Interactive map. Okay, let's not waste time on it, but I would advise you, you have the link there, go and have a look. What that does is it breaks down all the different levels. You know, we've got terminology coming out our ears. We've got all sorts of coastal management lines, we've got coastal public property, all sorts. This sets out exactly what is what. And it's a useful piece of information to contextualize the coastal zone. I think that's me. I'll try to keep to my 15 minutes, and I'm happy to take questions if I've been too brief. Thanks very much.